So, hello, welcome into Chi Time. It's a bit of a breakfast show here today. We've got Sacha Stone with us, although it's not breakfast over where you are, is it? What time is it with you?
Far from at 4:30 p.m. A delightful day in the tropics.
How is it the monsoon season?
Well, technically, I'm down by the beach. I'm staying at the beach during the season, but up at the main base in Ubud, it's it's raining a lot of the time. Put it that way.
Oh yes, the weather. I mean the outside weather, but the internal weather. But first of all, if people don't know who you are, which I can't believe they don't by now, you've been on the show. This is your third visit to Chi Time. You're the founder of the New Earth Project and Humanitad. But this International Tribunal of Natural Justice, this feels like a really important flag in the ground that you put. How many years ago did you co-found that?
Well, it started with a commission, a law commission that I put together. Must have been almost 10 years ago, when the former Prime Minister of Ukraine was incarcerated, and it looked as though she was being killed, poisoned behind bars, Yulia Tymoshenko. And it was she and her immediate circle reached out to Humanitad to see if we were able to get involved, because as I say, she thought she was being poisoned. And what am I saying? She was being poisoned. Maybe I'm not going to be diplomatic here. She was being poisoned behind bars. And so I put a law commission together with Sir John Walsh, was part of that commission, Lewis Montague and a few other noble souls. They wouldn't let me into the country. I wasn't allowed to get in to the Ukraine, because I think probably they knew that I was the shit stirrer behind the law commission. So I was blocked from going in. But nonetheless, that commission worked. I think we had certainly palpably affected the outcome. And Tymoshenko was released from prison, stopped being poisoned, and is still alive to this day, which is great. But that was really the first time that myself and Sir John and a couple of others really thought, well, you know what, we can set up an independent tribunal. And that gestated with me for a while. And then I established by 2015, was ready, and asked Sir John if he would be Chief Justice, which he agreed to. And then we established a bunch of commissioners and gave the court some real structure and a seal and a constitution and what have you. So it's been an up and down struggle. It's not been easy, I can tell you. I wouldn't recommend anyone tries to establish a jurisdiction through a court. There's a lot of infighting, a lot of shenanigans, a lot of nastiness from people who become disenfranchised from the vision. They then try to pull the taproots of it. We had a lot of that going on with the US chapter, who spread an awful lot of poison in the early days. Nonetheless, we prevailed and they have not. And we've gone on as a tribunal to conduct multiple landmark judicial commissions of inquiry, more notably in Westminster in 2018 into human trafficking and child sex abuse, which I determined was the single most important impediment facing our evolution as a species until we dealt with that. We dealt with that head on, with a lot of crossfire going on, a lot of death threats, and a lot of nasty stuff prevailing. But we subsequently got congratulated by a lot of leadership, intelligence communities, and so on, thanking us for the good pioneering work that we did with that Judicial Commission of Inquiry. And that then went on. So the human trafficking and child sex abuse was seminal. But then we also seated the Judicial Commission of Inquiry about a year and a half ago into weaponization of the biosphere, which was very prescient, because it really predicted much of what we're living through today with this corona COVID-19 pantomime, which is absolutely a classic example of weaponization of the biosphere by satanic, Luciferian, Sabbatean, deep state bad actors and institutions in a collusion exercise to not only cull great swathes of the human population in their ritualistic Babylonian fashion, but also to genetically modify and artificially intelligence, using artificial intelligence to transform the human experience into one which is more of an avatar experience that demonic forces can ultimately vicariously live through. So if anyone's wondering why 75 years of post-Nazi satanic tool society inspired black sun logic, how that is all played out to today, where all of our air, soil, and water is contaminated by glyphosates and fluoride and all sorts of chemicals, synthetic molecules and poisons. Why our mind and our hearts have been poisoned through subversive tactics, which is mind control, trauma-based mind control, connected to the dream spell machine of Hollywood and academia and mainstream news networks. So all of that stuff has been a diabolical conspiracy and collusion to subvert the natural born, organic, sentient human expression and condition.
Sacha Stone is with us on Chi Time.
I'm sorry. You know, the ITNJ is the antidote that we have manifested and imagined into play that addresses head on all of that chicanery.
Yeah, because something has got to be done in that department. You can't just chat about it. You've got to actually play them at their own game. And so you have to set up these things like the International Tribunal of Natural Justice to actually be able to fling laws back and forth and go, I don't know, you know so much more than I do about this, but thank you for doing what you're doing. I mean, as you were speaking there, I was just feeling like, why is it because we know that this is a world of duality. We've got the dark and the light, the interplay between the yin and the yang, and that we need some of the yin as well, just as much we need the yang. And this dance will continue forever and forms the whole experience of life. Why is it that the trust for the truth isn't really focused on in society? Why is that something that comes to individuals rather than be like embedded in our society? It's like, I just don't understand why societies are so run on like criminal ways and manipulations. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that you're just describing at a meta-cultural, meta-civilizational, meta-social level, you're describing the alchemy of a transmutation of the eliciting of the philosopher's stone from the base metal. So it really, you talk about most of the world, most of the time is in a state of endemic and systemic unconsciousness, but that creates the antimatter or the louche factor against which the light defines itself in the atom seed of true inquiry, in the hearts and minds of those sons and daughters of God who are ready to actualize within the dream spell. So that's the alchemical process. And indeed, those sons and daughters of God do actualize within the dream spell, are actualizing within the dream spell, and are becoming the arbiters and the determiners of the next phase of our ascension or our evolution, however you wish to coin it.
Yeah. Okay. So it's the unconsciousness piece, and we're getting, and you know, as I was presencing into what this wanted to be here today, I was getting that sense of the dark and the light. How we as human beings on the planet at the moment are having to manage so much psychological warfare, really. It's like, where is the clarity? It's like, can we hold the difficulties in one hand and the hope in the other? And can we kind of stir with these? So this is a movement that I do. That's just like circling around, usually anti-clockwise to begin with, just holding both and being the presence in the middle of both, and not being pulled to one way or the other. Well, I mean, in a moment, this circling movement that I do, and then I change direction with a little S-shaped squiggle in the middle and take it around the other way. And that just helps me to not get too fragged out, because what was it you said on that interview that you were doing yesterday on the Reclaim Your Lives, or maybe it was on your Sacha Stone Facebook, was that we are being blitz-creeked from every angle by paradoxes and conundrums and meltdowns and hysteria. You know, there's a psychological breakdown going on here. How can we navigate this? What do you suggest?
Well, curious enough, I love the example that you just raised of doing a circular or cyclical kind of circumambulation of your own flame. But I would suggest that there's a far more powerful technology that you could integrate into that, which is in the mind's eye to do an inverse or an obverse circling. So you literally let the mind move in a clockwise circle as the body is doing the anti-clockwise, and or vice versa. Now, when you can get that inverse obverse synchronizing going on, where the mental body and psychological, psycho-emotional mental body is doing one direction, the physical is doing the other, and then reverse that process, now you've just hit a synthesis point of alpha omega, and you're likely to go into a samadhi state before too long. Now, there's a reason why many of the great tribes of Africa have a generic ritual of lighting a fire around which the women folk all start linking hands and dancing in a circle and start to move in one direction. And then the males form an outer perimeter circle and link arms and do an obverse or inverse circling motion. And they'll continue to do this anti-clockwise and clockwise, masculine, feminine, dialectic dance. And they'll do it until the spirit is invoked of the ancestral song. And this is connected to the resonant frequencies activated within the DNA. If each of us allow ourselves and our own individual bullshit, our own fantasies, our own psyche to move into a kind of subsumation into the collective. When that happens and you're participating now at the collective level into this alchemical dance, you anchor the song of ages and the song of the ancestors, and that's what comes through. And then that's the moment at which the trance priests or the trance witch doctors move into full trance, and they take on all the knowing of the song of the ancestors and the ages, and they're able to then speak that flame of pure truth to the living temporal sons and daughters and grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren of the ancestors. And in the wisdom flame that they extend, those trance priests or witch doctors, however you want to coin it, in that beautiful ceremonial interplay, that is how they are keeping this real spirit moving. The one, incidentally, that we have lost, you and I, Clara, the one that has already been artificially homogenized and sterilized and bleached out of our psyche by our own white man's fire and white man's poison. So you see the wisdom keepers and the flame keepers amongst the black skin, brown skin, red skin, yellow skin peoples, the First Nation people, so to speak, is something we really need to now allow to rebirth and be the point of regenesis for the entire family of humankind. So there's a beautiful, the Hopi prophecy goes into this at great length. I'm sorry for waxing lyrical on the subject. It's just such an important subject to my heart.
No, I'm loving it. This is exactly, well, it's obviously exactly where we are meant to go, because we are here. And we're going to hopscotch around a little bit, I think, because we're following the flow, but there's also some questions. And you mentioned that the wisdom keepers and the indigenous communities, and it's reminding me of what's going to be happening at Uluru on the 21st of December this year, with the grandmothers meeting up, and how important it is for us to presence ourselves in our light and the wisdom that we have and tune in with them. And would you like to speak about that now in this
Yes,
in this space?
Happy to do so. I was invited on the 21st of December to keynote at Uluru at the big conference that's taking place there. I'm not able to get into the country. I'm certainly not willing to subject myself to 2 weeks of quarantine at the behest of Queen Elizabeth's proxy Commonwealth criminal government of Australia corporation. So I have no intention of going there in person. I've told the organizers and they understand. And I'll be doing a broadcast on screen, either live or pre-recorded, to that venue. But I'm very connected to the litmus of what is taking place in Australasia. And Uluru, as many people know, many people don't know, is really the crux of the creation story in many ways. There is no small reason why that huge red mountain rock is embedded in the middle of the plains of Australia. That was a gift from the gods coming in. The microbial cellular DNA and spores that traveled through God knows how many quadrants of the galaxy to get here in that rock and then embed firmly into the Australian soil back in the day was very much a part of our creation myth and Genesis point. And so again, the song of the ancestors and our creation, the creation species, is really what communicates through the grandmothers and through their wisdom flame and through the song lines and the dream timing. And it's a very powerful thing. It's medicine for us, all of us, for everyone in the world who've become dislocated in modern history. It's certainly in the last couple of thousand years, and the last 500 years, especially since the imperial crowns of Europe went around seeding the modern world. We have variously lost touch, been dislocated and disconnected from that combustion point between the dielectric universe and the telluric planes of the earth, which the Aboriginals and the First Nation peoples of Australia have not forgotten. The grandmothers especially, holding the matriarchal wisdom flame, are anchoring the patterns of perfection that are waiting yet to be rebirthed into the world, provided you and I, as the new Adam, are able to receive those codes, go forth with them and work with them in honor and in grace.
Oh, that is so beautiful. That gives us hope, because this episode of Chi Time is titled "The Mental Health Pandemic," and I would like you to speak around this now, but to bring the hope in first, and then remember that there is the power within each and every one of us to be able to vision our future, and we will talk a little bit about that moving on too. But first of all, this war on our sanity that is occurring from every single angle. It feels that, as you were speaking about that wisdom of the elders and the indigenous, it's like that is the salve. That's where to go to feel and know the truth that is not clouded. I mean, they're holding a really strong line here. Thank goodness, But how in mainstream society, with so much manipulation going on from the media and pitching people against one another, how can people find sanity within this melee?
By finding it is the answer.
By wanting to look for it in the first place, maybe as well.
Yes, it's there. It's self-revealing, self-fulfilling, and self-realizing. It never left you. It never left me. It never left us. It was always contained within the mirror pool of the perfect geometry of now. And as long as we are standing again in that flame of pure truth and right action in our lives, then we're all connected to the alpha and the omega of that universal logic, which is the universal law. And it doesn't change. It doesn't. It's immutable, and it's perfect, and it's always in a state of euphoria and bliss, ecstasy. By the way, but I just want to touch on another point here. Okay. Is that those grandmothers of Uluru are almost certainly the incarnations of the souls of the conquestors of old that conquested their peoples. And you see, that is the true soul alchemy that's taking place. So yes, they are anchoring and remembering us, the song of the ancestors, but the spirit inside them has come full circle as well, and has learned from this extraordinary alpha omega Ouroboros cycle of time, or yuga of time, the myth of time, that we have variously, us, all of those of us who are present in the earth plane right now, are all compacted within this yuga to have played both the thesis and the antithesis role, the destroyer and the creator roles. We've played all of these roles. We've now come full circle. The great destroyers of the day, who would be written up in the Hindu sagas, the Bhagavad Gita or the Mahabharata of the future, the epic tales will reflect on archetypal creatures like Bill and Melinda Gates, diabolical and deviant, a pair of twisted souls who are masquerading as being great philanthropists, and yet are consciously involved, willfully involved in a mass sacrificial harvest of humankind event. Now, that's a way of describing it in archetypal language, in the same way that our latest favorite imbecile Anthony Fauci is also that archetype, that highly twisted, incoherent, distorted, and unensouled patriarchal figure who has silently sat back in the portals of technocracy for the last 40 years, waiting to strike like the goddamn viper that he is. And boy, has he done a fulsome job as he tiptoes towards the grave at the age of 78 or whatever he is. A venal, vituperative character you could not create more than Anthony Fauci, and yet a very calm and sedentary character who's able to speak with dulcet tones and smooth, slick hands in whatever he turns his hands and mind to. This is wonderful stuff. We must have the courage to see it for what it is. It's an archetypal play. The Anthony Fauci's and the Bill and Melinda Gateses of this world, the Hillary Clintons of this world. I would even go so far as to talk about the Bidens and the Pelosi's, because there is no small secret that I believe the latter-day Democratic Party to be the Luciferic effigy of our times. The point I'm making is that all of these are bad actors, bad icons, operating at the behest of the archonic lower elemental intelligence. These creatures are compacted to do exactly what they're doing and to be exactly who they be. And they're doing a very good job. I wasn't being sarcastic when I said Anthony Fauci is doing a fulsome job as he tiptoes towards the grave at the age of 78. He has done a fantastic job as a salamander. He is a perfect vehicle for this kind of witchery and evil to have incubated very slowly for the last 40 years. Now, what becomes of him in the coming days is going to be of profound interest to those of us who are interested in the question. But let's not make the mistake of hating on Anthony Fauci. Let's not make the mistake of hating on Bill and Melinda Gates or Hillary Clinton or any deviant archetype out there that you can name. And you could talk about Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Ivan the Terrible. You can go back in history to any of these blood cult, serpentine sociopaths. It doesn't matter. Line them all up in front of you in your mind's eye. Go in, take your seat at the table with them. Behold them, bless them, salute them for being your great teachers. They have been our teachers. It's what they were covenanted to do and to be, which is why I cannot hold any hatred toward any of these creatures. I can only understand absolutely that they are soul compacted and covenanted to be in this world and of this world at this time, in order to be the very thing against which we, you and I, the living, the Adamic, we find relevancy, and we define the luminescence of our own soul against these blessed archetypes. But once we've actualized within that quanta, it then behooves us to say, let's put away childish things. We don't need to conjure these diabolical icons any longer. We don't need to play with a mutant civilizational software called democracy any longer. We don't need to pay into any of these mutant complexes any longer. Now is the time for the true regenesis of the Adam, that is you and I.
Yeah, yes. As you're speaking there, I can feel your calm presence, from which, like, you're witnessing these outpourings of shadow. And as you were mentioning on the last Chi time, it was like, it's about blessing it all because it's all teaching us, but also look at our own shadows. And this is not easy. It's not an easy place to go to. But, you know, as the difficulties in the world are coming to a head, so there's taking on yourself, you know, the self-responsibility of, like, actually, that's an old pattern I'm running, and how am I going to manage that? Because that's maybe from my ancestors or whatever, but not blaming them, sending them love back down the timeline, because we're all here doing our best. And this realization that we manifest how we really are. I mean, this is the big one, isn't it? Is where our minds are at is what actually creates our reality. And we're told this by all the thought leaders and wisdom keepers, and we're just not getting it, it feels like. There's still this blame and this judgment and this hate and this opinionated polarization. And it's like, when can we come into that center point, that atom seed, that light within? How can we train ourselves to keep coming back there? I mean, you and I do this. I mean, it's the only way that I can stay sane. But how to get that out? How do we share that? I guess through talking, speaking, sharing, giving experiences to people that they have this within them all the time. It's always there to return back to as a witness bearer point, to see what's going on with the dark and the light. Back to that again.
Well, I hope you've got an okay connection here. It's telling me it's unstable.
Good.
I would suggest, just add to what you said, when you speak about how difficult it is to arrive at that point of regenesis within self and engage relationship with self. And yes, you were right, but it is the idea that is difficult. It's not the actual thing. The idea is difficult. It's the idea that keeps you from achieving. And that's where false light comes in. Ideation is invariably false light, invariably false light, not all the time. But if it's incoherent ideation, it is false light by definition. When it is coherent ideation and it's connected to the pranic field and the plasma projection that issues from you, the human capacitor of the divine, then yes, you can anchor patterns of perfection into this world and manifest outcomes exponentially quickly. But it actually, to engage relationship with self is not only easy, it is the path of least resistance to the highest outcome, provided one has learned to move into coherence. And coherence only, again, comes about when one embodies and enacts pure truth and right action in the living moment, which is now, always now, always now, always now, never leaving that crucifix. That is the true crucifix, is the crossing of those planes of pure truth and right action, of being and doing in the quanta of the universal embrace, under the gaze of the universal God. That is who we are. It's what we are. It's how we own our capacitance as sons and daughters of God, how we embody, enact, and manifest moving forward only the elevation of art and beauty and consciousness, acting in grace and acting in kindness, constantly being in a state of affirmation and creativity. That's what we're born to. But the other is the artifice that is sold to us by the dead fiction, the government, the culture, the thing that has cult programmed us, which is the culture of our idiom, whatever our idiom is, as a Mongolian, as a Kalahari Bushman, as a Sherpa in the Himalayas. It doesn't matter what your culture is. It's part of an idiom. And now is the first time, arguably in the history of time, where we're able to truly see through the artifice of the internet and through bucket tickets on airlines and everyone traveling around with backpacks. We're all seeding this world now. We're all interrelating, and we're all entangling. We're all cross-pollinating and fertilizing as a species, mind, body, and soul. There is a synergizing going on. Forget the homogenization. This is the other. This is very powerful and uplifting. This is the activating of the sleeping codons. This is how you and I, by connecting fire in the eyes, me and the person in Mozambique, me and the person in New Zealand, all of this interplay is activating the fire coding within us. And in a way that is actually teaching me that I am you, I am that thou art, and the same. You see, so that's a natural, organic, sentient breakdown of enclosures and borders and boundaries and cultures. It's happening in a natural, sentient unfoldment. We don't need to artificialize the process anymore. The only thing we need to do is, in an actualized sense, is to consciously and willfully disentangle and disidentify from false light, which is culture, government, religion.
Oh, yeah, I'm getting it. And as you're speaking from that place, I can feel a resonance within me that's expanding, going, it's safe here. Of course it's safe here. We're speaking about the truth and we're sharing this, and it's going through these sound waves and these light waves to the people that are listening. And we do have people listening on the call that are saying hello from France and from Nevada and from Sweden and from England. So hello to everybody around the world. You are sharing the light with your culture. I mean, it's interesting, this word culture. Do you think that that COVID has become a cult now, where we're not allowed to speak bad of the COVID cult? What are your thoughts on that, Sacha?
Well, I don't give a proverbial fuck about what the COVID-19 progenitors and their little acolytes and their little fiends and ghouls in the technocracies of the world, and how they seek to preserve and protect their evil and their witchery. It's a matter for them, and they can cast whatever limited light and relevancy they have in life toward that game and preserving that game. It's of no consequence to me. I'm already disentangled from it, It has no thrall over me. I know how to break somebody's nose if they get too close to me physically. I know how to articulate reason and logic and sanity, philosophy and spirituality as well. I also know, as you do, how to perform remote this and remote that, and send blessings and also affect outcomes by the right kind of magic, which is activated psionic intelligence. I've learned how to defend not just myself, but others from a terrible psychic interposition and warfare. I'm not afraid at any level of any of that nonsense. Let those people continue to deploy their cult. They will perish to it, Clara. All of the progenitors and their circles of fiends and ghouls, as I said, who are part of this diabolical complex, they're performing a vital function. They have been performing a vital function, which is the crowning event, the coronation event of humankind's abject stupidity. And that was needful in the year 2020, because in the year 2020, 2021, you and I, after this year, when the light coding and the universal symphony changes song, you and I take the journey from there. Their hand has been played. Their poker hand has already been laid out. Even if we want to use the analogy and the metaphors of geopolitics in North America right now, the deep state has already exposed itself fully. The paraphernalia of the deep state, the apparatus of the deep state, the FBI, the CIA, all of the criminality within the policing infrastructure, the intelligence and the military infrastructures have all exposed themselves also to the good factions within those intelligence and military echelon. In the last few days, just this week alone, we learn of the collusion of the Department of Homeland Security and the CIA with the ballot rigging and the vote rigging in North America. The mecca of democracy has been defiled. Okay, it can never recover. And what a wonderful thing that is. So let the good magicians, the good wizards, the good witches, and the good peoples of the world who carry the common pulse of humankind, we are the ones who are now going to be the determinants of the outcome. So it doesn't matter what the COVID hysteria is trying to throw at us. It doesn't matter what the forced vaccination and ongoing weaponization of the technocracies and the governments of the world and the public health administration sector. It doesn't matter all of that wittering and wheezing and white noise. After the 21st of December, it is flatlining. We've got to run up till the middle of January, when it's going to be absolute chaos as the false light is literally torn off as a mask of that part of middle America, middle Canada, middle England, middle Australia, okay, middle humanity. That is going to be pulled off. The last of the mask will be ripped off. And then it's a fair, beautiful sailing into 2021, which is the year, incidentally, that's been gifted to us by the grace of God to seed the vision of the new earth, all of us who are attuned to that frequency set. So my answer to the question, and as usual, I'm sorry, it's a long wheezing answer, is that we should only be now really focusing our attention and our plasma projection onto the ideation and the imagineering of that which truly serves us at the soul level, and that which brings us into euphoria. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yes. I love it when you witter anyway. It's not really wittering, it's you like speaking your soul truth. It just cannot stop cascading through. It's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing. We're getting great comments from people saying, really needed to hear this today. Thank you. Thank you. So with this collapse of the old, what were you saying? There's a quadrillion-dollar enterprise of criminal activity that's going to go down, you know, and that's just one of the things. This false light coming off, the chaos that is going to ensue. So how do we manage this to in ourselves? Stop piling food, growing food, and living in communities, holding each other's hands, hugging one another, and going, "It's okay. Who's got the Scrabble board? The internet's gone down." I don't know. Human beings are very adaptable. So knowing that this is the birth canal, we are in the midst of the annihilation of the old and the seeding of the new. At the same time, there's the dark and light again playing. and staying with your presence of being, that love that you know to be true here on the planet, but also from your ancestors, and knowing that each and every one of us that's here at the moment has chosen to be here. Do you really feel that we've all chosen to be here at the moment to do what we have to do and to stand up and put our own flags in the ground and go, yes, going this way?
Well, if the question is for me, I don't do feelings. I do knowings. And okay. The knowing is, yes, everyone who is in the now is covenanted to be here. The most disingenuous and ignoble action that any of us can undertake is denial of that universal truth that we have covenanted ourselves into the living moment. And we're not victims of anything. We've discussed this before, you and I. But that, in a sense, is the very first thing that we need to do within ourselves, within the alchemy of ourselves, if we truly wish to disentangle from suffrage, from pain, from sorrow, from the trial of separation, from decay, and from death. Because a full understanding of what I'm saying is a complete reversal of entropy at the mind, body and soul level of expression. Now, I know that that is going to emerge in the coming days, certainly as we hurtle towards the great galactic event horizons, which I'm now feeling increasingly confident in defining as the micronova event of 2046, in 26 years from now. That micronova event almost certainly, as far as I understand today, and I will always speak my truth on the day, even if it evolves. But as I understand it now, the influx of UV light that will be impacting us incrementally between now and then is the very thing that is threatening Cronus and the Draco and the reptilian aspect of our expression. And this is why the vaccination program and the cult programming is being really amped up. This is why they really need to get those nanoparticulates into our blood. This is why they really need to weaponize the air with 5G, phased array antenna systems to be able to track and trail, surveil us, and dial into the isotope frequencies of our individual DNA and do whatever they want to do to mutate or apprehend us by killing us, by giving us heart attacks, by giving us strokes, by there's any number of things that they can dial in using this technology to be able to control the entire field of expression of humanity. The reason why these Draco elements are trying so desperately to take full control over the human genetic expression is because they know in their Babylonian mysterium logic that the influxing of UV light is unstoppable, that these solar flares and the micronova events coming up are bringing to us the light coding that is the final catalyst for regenesis of the ascension event of humankind at the physical temporal 3D level. Okay, that's the beauty of it. That's the secret source here. It is not an event where Ezekiel or the Pleiadians are going to bring us towards some object and take us off somewhere safely into the heavens through some Jacob's ladder fantasy. No, it is happening at the physical level. Yes, you can regrow the enamel on your teeth. Yes, you can regrow your brittle and feeble old bones that have become distorted and rheumatoidal. Yes, you can grow back your hair. Yes, you can grow back your eyesight and get rid of the glaucoma and the diabetes in your system. Yes, you can grow back every single aspect of the mitochondria and and reinstall the correct spin of atoms and light capacitance in the human body. All of that stuff is connected to the regenesis of the building blocks of reality, the building blocks of our biological standing and being. But that's part of it. There's so much more than that. It's also a full activation of the psionic consciousness, the spiritualized consciousness of who we are and who we be. That is also on a monumental upgrading as we move towards this event horizon of 2046. So every day we should be regarding as that event horizon, because every day is the chance for you and I to activate that regenesis and quite literally start to receive and transcode all of that light coding coming in. This is hard science, guys. This is not la-la. This is not Fruity Land speaking out of some New Age mystical book. I've never read a book in my life on mysticism or the New Age bullshit. This is just, if one is able to be fully present in the now and understand the building blocks of reality without gargling too much ayahuasca or chewing too much peyote, you begin to learn and commune with nature and with the ethers and with the universal law, and the universal mind communicates to you. That's the great benefit of standing in pure truth and conducting right action in the living moment, which is to say, always being vigilant, always being present and mindful. So that's the real reality that is unfolding right now, as the false light reality is being weaponized, and we're being led to believe, but those morons amongst us who choose to believe what we're being led to believe, that we're being taken into the bowels of Hades through Corona and COVID and any number of stealth viruses that are going to jump out of nowhere and get us. And we've got men in white suits and men in black suits all lining up with syringes and tasers and fuck knows what. I mean, come on. Guys, it's a choice. It's either move into the affirmative, the expansive, the creative, the beneficent, and the limitless, and the ineffable, and the majestic, or not. It's a choice.
It is. I love it, because you're speaking from the place of what's really going on. This is what's really happening, not the distortion on the top, but what's going on underneath that cannot be stopped. This evolution that humanity is in, with the relationship with the light and the heart coherence, cannot be stopped. Now, there was something you were speaking, was it, I can't remember who you were talking to, but it was that really short piece that you just put out recently that I shared to Chi Time TV, the Facebook group, around the vaccine and how it is targeting part of our chromosome 8. That's the one.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that a bit.
Well, that's just connected to the objective there is to commandeer target chromosome 8, which is the capacity for human beings to love and be loved, and to feel empathy and to extend compassion. And remember, we know through electrography and all sorts of advanced vanguard sciences connected to scalar and what have you, we know that the empathic waveform issuing out of a human heart is the waveform that reaches all across the entire universe. Okay, Dan Winter and other great scientific minds in advanced physics have already identified that and demonstrate that. So knowing that we know that empathy, our capacity to intuit, to engage, to entangle, to empathize, to feel the other's pain, and thereby to be able to act as some form of absolution and redemption to one another. That's why it hurts so bad when a member of the family dies and we're all in a room together. We're all connected, we're all sharing that pain at that time, so that the lover, the mother, the father, the husband, the wife, the person closest to the deceased is carrying the brunt of it. Without that family there, through the linguistic wave genetics, picking up the real impact trauma, that person would die of a broken heart before sunrise, which often happens when there's no one else to help to absorb through the linguistic wave genetics, to absorb that suffrage and that terrible loss, a sense of deep despair and trauma. So it's all of that interplay that makes us human. That's our power and that's our glory. That's our majesty. The fact that we feel one another and through that feeling, that's how we evolve. Without that feeling and that empathic wave, there is no possibility of ascension. There's no possibility of evolution at the spiritual consciousness level, because we would be apprehended in a very static androidal way. It's like we all would have drunk 3 gallons of fluoride in the morning and injected 70 milligrams of Valium into our veins and just sit there waiting for some godless instruction from a gormless technocrat in your government. That's what they want. The unresolved aspects of us who have manifested as bad icons in government, they are the ones who want that to roll out, because they are the emissaries of the lower astral. They are the emissaries of Yaldabaoth. They are the conduits of the draconian and Orion and far-flung negative frequency ET species that are living vicariously through the human family, through multifarious strains of demonic possession connected to alcoholism, all sorts of addictions at every level. People addicted to donuts suffer the same thing. Sugars are a conduct. Processed foods and processed sugars are an absolute conduit for demonism. Understand hyperdimensional physics, understand synthetic molecules and the isotope frequencies that come off and the mutant frequencies, and how that disrupts, distorts, and defiles and degrades and downgrades your own DNA, RNA, and your own frequency set that you're born with, which is in a saintly space. That's why babies, when they come out the womb, glow. They radiate that pinkness. Look in their eyes. You see the light streaming out of them. Why are we drawn to babies? Why are Sabbateans and Satanists and Babylonian wizards and witches and warlocks drawn to babies and drinking the blood of infants? It's all connected to that radiance, that incredible light coding capacitance that infants bring into this world. All I'm saying is we are able to create that regenesis within ourselves and rebirth ourselves on a minute-by-minute basis with that innocence. And that's what the message of the Master Jesus was about. Behold the world through the eyes of a child. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. This reverence to the miracle of life, to the miracle of your existence, to the whole miracle of the fact you exist. I mean, goodness me, I'm sure we've talked about this before, but it's important to keep remembering this. You know, we are, although none of us matter, all of us matter. Where we put our focus grows. Where we stand up and be courageous, that sends out sonic boom into the world. And I think it was Tara Thornton speaking on your interview on Sacha Stone yesterday, talking about how it is time to stand up and have those difficult conversations. We're heading into Thanksgiving in the US now. And it's like, you know, what are we really thanking here? What are we really grateful for here? Well, let's start with ourselves. Let's start with our personal sovereignty. Let's start with the fact that we can choose. And let's also be mindful that there's people in this world with different opinions to ours. And that is okay.
Well, not if they vote for Biden. It's not okay. I'm joking.
But yeah, so how do we, so as we start coming on the downhill slope here, I feel like we've been up the mountain, coming down the Chi mountain with Sacha Stone, and we are coming into how are we managing this? Where are we coming into? What do we need to be doing to be able to stay sane whilst it's all collapsing around us? Who to or what to look to, we've already spoken about that within ourselves, that the light, trusting that truth will prevail, that each and every one of us does actually know what is right.
I didn't say trusting the truth, and I would apprehend you there.
Okay,
I would say to go into full coherence with the truth, but we, again, to beat this donkey to death because it deserves to die right here, right now, is trust, hope, and faith. We must, and belief, we must start to expunge these false light notions out of our lexicon, out of our lives, out of our diction, out of our grammar. We do not want to hope for anything. We want to know. And we are the ones who are able to manifest the knowing. So we must stop hoping. We must not believe. That is the shit sold to us by priesthoods of old. They never served us. They never intended to. Let's not believe in anything. Let us know what we know, feel what we feel, see what we see. And let us not trust in anything. We've been invited to trust in kings, principalities, popes, sovereigns for centuries, millennia. They don't serve us. We're now invited to trust in the government. We're invited to trust in the public health administration. No more trust, no more extension of trust, no belief, no faith, and God forbid we ever hope again. We must simply begin to embody, enact, and manifest. That's it. And to know, and to be present in that knowing, seeing, and feeling.
And could I dare say, trust that knowing inside?
How about know that knowing?
Know that knowing. All right. But this brings us really nicely to a project that we both find ourselves involved in behind the scenes called The Messengers, with Christian Wolff, the conceptual artist that is just like, oh my goodness, this feels really pertinent that this is shining a light into the visionary aspects of what can be birthright now. And I mean, we're just going to drop little bits over the next little while until it's ready to actually share completely with the world. But he has given us permission to just do a little seed of light here around that when we do align with this divine visionary aspect of ourselves, and we work together on something, we collaborate and bring through masterpieces of multimedia artistry, then that is a huge energetic seeding, birthing into the world. And we want more of them, right?
Quite so. Couldn't agree more. I'm not sure where the project takes us at this stage. We've had a strategic meeting to look at how we use the medium and the optics connected to sound and texture and color and light and a moving image and what have you. How do we imbue and invest that confluence of creative medium into not prognosticating anything, but in inspiring and invoking a reorientation in the trajectory of our peoples, of our species. That's what we're doing with the art form, this very kind of nebulous and quantum art form connected to the wonderful project you've just described. So it's going to be a fun ride anyway, and a more talented conceptual artist that we couldn't have wished for to be working with. So looking forward to it greatly.
Yeah, so that, if you'd like to find out more, is on themessengersalive.com. And as I say, we'll be dropping more info in here because I know Magenta Pixie is involved and Laura Eisenhower as well, which is just tremendous. Again, we're getting back to what's happening behind the scenes really is incredible. There's an amazing minds at hearts at work and at play here. And each and every one of you watching are part of this too. So don't lose faith. Know that your true will guide you. And if there's anything to sort of finish off on here on Chi Time, is that, I mean, you have really helped so much. We're getting great comments through, people saying that they're really loving what they're hearing. Thanks, RJ. Really good to have you on the call. And feeling that there's a community growing here, that people are not alone. I think that's so important now, to know that you're not alone. You so are not alone.
I think that this is a time for quite radical weeding of the garden. I think this is a good time. I'm feeling it coming up in me. I'm going to start hacking off some heads in the coming days. I'm putting together my game plan and strategy for removing certain heads from certain shoulders of deviants around the world who have been, and I see them continuing to cause unbelievable harm to the truth movement and to good people who have been on the front line. So I've decided it's time now, because the game is now on automatic pilot and the high outcome is assured. I feel happy enough to turn my attention away from being on the front line to going to the trolls and the creatures who've been sniping at people like us from the bushes. And I plan to rout them out and remove their heads from their shoulders. So woe betide if you're one of them, because in the next year, 2021, I'm coming for you, and I will flatline all of those voices, all of those deviant energy forms. I've decided to take no prisoners whatsoever. I've been on the front line for 21 years. I have not stopped. I know the work I've accomplished. I know why I've done it, and I know to what end. And I hear and see the most disgusting, venal, insidious, and sinister things being said about David Icke, about me, about Chef Pete Jones, about David Avocado Wolf, about all of the real truthers who've been doing this an awful long time. And I've decided it's time to go and clean up our own trenches and get rid of the snipers. So that for me is what I call weeding the garden, because really next year is about preparing for the beautiful bounty and the beautiful bloom of these patterns of perfection. But I genuinely think we have to first drag net that pond and get rid of some of the serpentine elements. So that's what I intend to be doing in the next calendar year, whilst continuing to seed things. And we've got 3 New Earth projects, sanctuaries that we're planning to announce in the new year. So we're just doing the legal stuff now and getting the paperwork lined up. But greatly looking forward to the announcements that we're making in the new year about actual boots on the ground and feet in the mud. Very excited about that in 3 different countries. With many others lining up, but those are the 3 prime ones that we're going to be announcing. And so for me, it's all now about cleaning the garden, making sure that we've weeded out all of those nasty, thorny things that tend to get under the feet of little innocent children. I'm not going to have any of those evil and toxic forms in my garden moving forward. And I would invite everyone who's of sound mind and sensibility to also not be afraid now to turn around and do battle with those same serpentine elements in your life. We have good people, and I count myself as a classic exemplar of a good person, because I've never, ever, one time in my life, ever sought to do harm or injury to another living soul, not once. Now, only I know that to be true, and I don't try and sell that to anyone. I'm not concerned about what anyone else thinks. I know who I am. I am the Adam. I claim that throne. I claim that crown. And I just see how so much of the pain in the journey of manifesting the New Earth vision for me, so much of the pain has been caused by my failure to turn around and deal with the shit and the bad actors along the way, because I've never wanted to name and shame or cause any harm or injury to living men. But now I'm really looking around and going, well, this is a garden, this is a beautiful plateau we've arrived at. I'm going to put down my big battle axe. So I'm not taking on dragons and leviathans anymore, because they've more or less been put down. The arteries have been slashed. Those big creatures are now toppling. But I really just want to make sure that the energetic field is clean. So there's a time now of absolution and forgiveness, absolutely. But if that doesn't work, then I think each of us must now have the courage to start to do some heavy lifting and to really clean up, clean the house, clean the garden, clean the street. Let's do it now, and let's be brave about it, because that saying, all it takes for evil to prevail in this world is for enough good people to do nothing, is entirely true. That is how evil became all pervasive in our civilizational model. But that also means that we've allowed for evil, the fractures of evil, to come into our families, into our homes, into our communities, into our movements. And we've not necessarily addressed those elements, and we've allowed them to continue to defile and poison our water, whether they be trolls or disenfranchised former associates or colleagues, just that really narky element that is preventing a full emancipation. We must have the courage now to go and bleach and sterilize the house, and that's what I'm encouraging people in your audience to resonate with that message. Because if we don't, that salamander class of unevolved human beings, some of whom have been our best friends and even family members, if we continue to allow that element into the garden, that will grow again. It will. You must now be the arbiter and the determiner of what pure truth is and what right action is in your life, in your noble journey. Do not be told otherwise.
Bless you, Sacha, for speaking your truth and living your truth and seeding this in each and every one of us so that we resonate and know our truth will guide us. And thank you also for being part of Chi Time again. Look forward to the next time. Likewise. And be with you all on the 21st of December, wherever you are, pointing our radiant heart Chi to Uluru. But I'll be back on Chi Time again very soon. Friday, with our mutual friend, Dr. Amalia Wai-Ching Lee, is talking about the negative ions clothing and that way of working with the Qigong movement and the healthfulness of wearing clothes, of which this is one I happen to add. So anyway, thank you so much for your time here. For everybody watching, do subscribe if you haven't already, then you'll get handy little notes from me reminding you who's coming up next. So those of you that picked up this message only an hour before we went live, thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Sacha, as ever, for everything that you're doing and being here on the planet.